Good afternoon to all of you. This is post-lunch session and therefore concentration I am sure is highest. I'll keep my presentation as brief as possible.
Ask questions.
Yeah. Now I have prepared this presentation to speak to you with the index of why green technology in power sector, opportunities on green side in conventional and renewable energy space, future possibilities, then CDM space and renewable energy certificate benefits, and then finally technology transfer and IPR protections. Now if you look at today's environment, we had Copenhagen conference last month, and then we also came across under cabinet meeting in Maldives, Mount Everest cabinet meeting in Nepal, and trains running from Belgium to Copenhagen with electricity generated by renewable sources. And all these things just to bring down the temperatures or just bring down the emission levels of the world across. Now this enthusiasm has to be carried forward in the industry also. And if you look at power sector, today power sector is mostly about 50 to 60% all across is through coal. And coal definitely generates a lot of emission levels. And on the top of that, we have shortages of coal across the country, including in our country also. We find extremely difficult to get coal linkages, or even if coal mines have been allocated, developing them itself is a challenge. Now getting this coal from other countries like Indonesia, Australia, Mozambique and all that, availability is an issue, B, transportation cost, again question of more emissions to bring it to the level where we require. Apart from this, we are getting newer and newer regulations. Like for distribution companies, there are compulsions now to distribute part of their power through renewable source. And these obligations are increasing over the period. Then companies in this space are also going green, and some of the companies who have gone green world over have phenomenal numbers, like say Scottish Power generates about 7,000 megawatt through green power, and they have got target of about 40,000 megawatt to generate. Then E.ON, which is one of the large company of Europe, is also intending to have 50% of their portfolio through renewable power in next couple of years. In our country, Tata Power has already announced that at least 25% of their portfolio will be through renewable power. Now, if this is the kind of speed, then obviously you need to see why we do not take steps to bring down our emission levels. And today green is clean, so investment in green power is definitely required to be looked into. Maybe there are issues which we will examine. Now if you look at existing generations, like say we in CSE, in RPG, have facilities through thermal power. Now in thermal power, we have some of the issues where some opportunities exist to bring down emission levels by doing certain improvements over existing practices, like recycling of S-waste or use of high-grade coal, harmless release of particle emissions, or reduction of SF6 greenhouse gas in HT circuit breakers, advanced gas turbine and use of gas-fired boilers. In newer facilities, we are talking of capacities to be built up from subcritical to supercritical and ultimately even ultra-supercritical. If you have just noticed in last 2-3 years, so many ultra-megawatt power projects have been allotted in our country to various organizations. Tata Power is building supercritical power stations at Mundra, and first of their station will be operational in about a year's time. Then Adani Power has also been doing this kind of supercritical power stations. Reliance also has got some of these ultra mega stations, including Sasan and 2 more. And more of these things are likely to happen, which will definitely reduce our emission levels, and to that extent, this will be a step towards greening the entire sector. Then integrated gasification combined cycle, although our success rate today is not much. One of the plants by, I think, BHEL couple of years back was a total disaster. But another plant is coming up in Andhra Pradesh with Epigenco, and some portion of grant is also given by Government of India for this side. And then underground coal gasification also could be a step towards reducing your emission levels. Now these are possible sources to reduce your emission levels, and to that extent we can say that we are taking steps to make our existing operations green. If you look at in transmission and distribution, some of these initiatives can be taken, and some of these are being taken by existing DISCOs. Like say ultra high voltage transmission lines are being set up where T&D losses can be brought down, and indirectly to that extent your emission levels come down. Then LT switched capacitor banks are getting in place. Energy efficiency transformers are getting in place. Then gas insulated digital stations, wide area monitoring system, underground distribution lines and smart grid. Some of the few examples, although there are many more initiatives which can be taken on distribution side, and we are one of the DISCOs in Calcutta, and we are taking these steps or some of these steps to make ourselves more green on the existing operations. If you look at renewable source, some of these things which are talked about, one is solar, one is wind, then hydro and other opportunities. Now solar, the Government of India has already announced their plans that by 2022, country will have capacity of 20,000 megawatt to grid connected solar side. Now investments today are huge, and per megawatt cost is also exorbitant. Today whatever tariffs are given are also not sufficient, including subsidies given by Government of India, and therefore costs have to come down to see that more of such things happen. If you take the stock of country today, there are only 4 megawatt kind of capacity built, 2 megawatt in West Bengal and 2 megawatt I suppose in some other state. Now capacity of solar is huge. Fortunately in India we have about 250 to say 300 sunny days per year. And today if you harness the entire solar power, India's annual electricity consumption would probably be lower than 1 day's solar generation capacity. Issue is costs are prohibitively high, so unless costs come down, maybe that we will have to wait for more things to happen on this. But if technological improvements happen, that what cell phones did to telecom, solar can do for power sector, and that is the thing to be seen by us over say next 10 or 12 or 15 years. Then on wind, potential of India is about 45,000 megawatt. Installed capacity is hardly 20% of that. Proven track record of Indian equipment manufacturer and some of the organizations like Suzlon and all that are already working on this growth. Then China Light and some other companies are setting up lot of capacities. Now some of the states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Rajasthan or Tamil Nadu are doing lot of things on this, and even tariffs are higher than what normally other states have given. And with that we think a lot of these things could happen. There are possibilities, and to that extent renewable source can contribute on greening the power sector in the country. Then WindSim, which is a software solution for energy efficiency wind farm design tools. So what wind offshore is the strongest power generator for cities on onshore, and more of such actions are to take place in the times to come. Hydro, we have huge capacity in the country, like say 250,000 megawatt of hydro potential. Hardly very insignificant portion has been harnessed. Today, say states like Arunachal Pradesh have possibilities of setting up huge capacity. But best is yet to happen, and once those kind of things happen, this power can be utilized for say peaking time, which is already in shortage in our country. And even if say PLF is lower, if we can use this power during peaking time, lot of cost rationalization can take place, and this is clean and green power, where your cost, your raw material cost is almost zero, except say very few small percentage of total normal cost of thermal or other sources. Now long gestation period is there and poor grid connectivity is today in existence that needs to be addressed. Government is stepping up a lot of these opportunities through opening up this sector, and lot of states are coming with their bids. Other than this, we have a couple of other sources like biomass, cogeneration, waste heat recovery power plants, and in many of our manufacturing operations we find that waste heat recovery power plants are in place, whether it is in steel or carbon black or many of these like cement, etc. We in our group have one company in carbon black space, Philips Carbon Black Limited, which generates about 60 megawatt kind of waste heat recovery power plant, where our cost is almost nil, except few paces for operational cost and interest and depreciation. And to that extent, this is clean and green power and adding up bottom line also substantially. Now this is interesting example of one small village, Odanthurai, which is in Coimbatore district. Now there are 9 villages in Odanthurai Gram Panchayat, and all of them are on green power. They are generating about 350 kilowatt of windmill, use solar power to light 2 of their villages, and has biomass gasifier. Of the annual generation of 8 lakh units, their own consumption is hardly, say, about 4.5 lakhs, and balance they transmit to TNEB. Now we need more Odanthurai in our country so that more and more greening can take place across, and India is populated by villages, and if these examples can be repeated, lot of things can happen in our place on greening initiative. Now other sources are possibly natural gas where emission levels are lower, nuclear which is still in the domain of government, maybe over the period of next 10 years lot of policy changes can take place and things can improve where private sector can also participate. Then geothermal or osmotic power, none of these things are in talks today, but these opportunities can be also tapped. Then green buildings, okay, a lot of green buildings are in place today in India, and more buildings can be more energy efficient buildings if not green. And once they get into the space of energy efficiency, that's a step towards greening of the buildings, and maybe they can start with some certification, and if they improve their situation, they can also reduce their emission levels. Then CFL and LED lights also contribute in terms of reducing emissions. Now future possibilities which are not yet fully exploited across the world, one of them is carbon capture in storage. One small plant is in operation in UK, but still costs are very high, and therefore more and more technological improvements have to take place, and then this could be a sort of common possibility. Then these 2 more also I came across, like light emitting wallpaper, which may begin to replace light bulbs from 2012. I don't have much of information, but this is also a step towards improving the emission levels. Then say mini nuclear reactors can be installed in the neighborhood, which can give power to various places in the neighborhood. And if these things can be cost effective, then a lot of these green power can be in place across the country. Now if you take steps on greening of these power initiatives, you can also possibly harness some benefits of clean development mechanism. If you look at the statistics of projects registered under this scheme, there are about 2,000 registered CDM projects, and over 60% are through renewable energy space. India, China, Brazil account for almost 70% of these projects, and we in our country also have maximum projects through this space. We in RPG group have 4 registered CDM projects which are all in this space of renewable energy, like say waste heat recovery power plant or say energy efficiency projects in one of our companies. So this benefit also can be taken. Now whether this benefit is available or not, if you take steps on greening or your operations, then at least you see that your bottom line is improving, and if you get this benefit, that's a further benefit to your scale of operations. Now, government is talking of renewable energy certificates, and they are planning to introduce this, and they have already announced in various states the renewable purchase obligations. So if some of the companies have these renewable energy certificates in place, then these can also be utilized to create some revenue. And this is definitely a step towards encouraging more and more corporates to take these steps on renewable energy side. Now finally, if you are investing so much, then you need to capture all these technologies, and you need to take steps for IPR protections. Otherwise, your investments may have some issues when you want to capitalize in future in terms of transferability or say exclusivity or non-exclusivity, or maybe your rights and obligations get into challenging mode. So this is a prerequisite and this is a necessity, and a lot has been talked about over yesterday and today, and I'm sure much more will be discussed by evening. So these are my some of the thoughts on the greening side of say power sector, and we can take question answers whenever Chairman requests. Thank you.